Okay guys, we made it to part 4 of our 8-part series. We're going to dive right into the menu system, which I know a lot of you have been waiting to do so. Now in that, we're going to go over all the red camera settings. And what that is a lot of your photo function settings. So we're going to go over the first 5 pages of settings. Yes, there is a lot of settings to learn about in those menu systems. We're going to go over the first 5 pages in part 4. So let's dive right into it. The camera's on, so let's go on and hit that menu button. Start working through a billion of these menus. There's so many of them, and that is probably the biggest thing about Sony, is that this is where things get extremely confusing. And if you don't know what a lot of these settings do, you can't make changes that you need to make. So if you notice, this first menu section is 14 deep, if you see right here in this corner. And if we kind of jump over to here, this one's 9 deep, 2 deep, 3 deep, 7 deep, and then this is custom functions, which we're going to go over how to set those up. So bear with me, and we'll try to get through all of this and explain how everything works to the best of my ability. So let's jump right into it. File format. So this is your RAW format. If we want to click in, we can actually pick the file format. So if you want it to shoot RAW plus JPEG or just JPEG, depending on the situation. I do have clients that just I'll shoot and burn. So pretty much I send them the files, and they don't want them to be overly too large to edit for whatever kind of event I'm doing. So I just stick with doing RAW there, or JPEG there. But mostly I shoot in RAW. RAW, uncompressed or compressed, again, that has to do with the file size and how big that will be and how much megabytes it will take up. So I always shoot uncompressed because that's going to give me the most latitude to correct images in post. JPEG quality, of course, extra fine. I want to have my settings maxed out, but if you don't, you could set your JPEG to standard or fine. I did one of those like Tough Mudder competitions, and I knew that was going to just like tear through my gigabytes of cards. So I just did fine with JPEG, and it was a much lower resolution quality photo, but they didn't need anything special. And the lighting was actually pretty good that day, so the exposures were pretty right on, and they actually probably did not do any post editing, and I did like 6,000 pictures. So it was much easier to send over 6,000 pictures at 1 or 2 megabytes versus 20 or 30 megabytes. JPEG image size. Again, you can go in and change the image size. I, however, do a larger 20 megabytes so that it is the highest quality possible. Aspect ratio, I just do 6:9, but you have the option 3.2 or 6:9 depending on your aspect ratio. And then Super 35. So I have that set up on C3. So the really cool thing about Super 35, and this really works more for video than photos, but this also can work for photos, is if you understand that a full sensor camera will actually show more. If you're taking the same exact shot with the same lens, you'll get more in your frame with a full sensor camera, full 35mm versus a crop sensor camera. So what APS-C does is, if you put the same exact lens and you take the same exact shot, you're actually going to be zoomed in a little bit further on a crop sensor versus the full frame camera. So you can, well, I might be shooting video and I need to get tighter on the shot, right? So I just hit C3, which switches me over to APS-C mode, therefore allowing me to almost zoom in on top of the zoom that I've already done. And it is fantastic. I absolutely love it, and I highly suggest in using it. I use that more for video than photos. So again, it turns my full frame camera into a crop censored camera. Yes, I lose a little bit of quality, but as long as the lighting is good, you're not gonna be able to see the change in quality, and you're able to punch in and get a little bit closer to your object. So that's what I do. This is a crop censored lens, so we'll take this out for a second. So this little 24mm pancake that I have right here, it's a crop censored lens. So if I put this on the full frame, it looks like I'm putting a fisheye on my frame, and it's all vignetted around the back. So they'll be vignetting around the video all the way around here, right? Well, then I hit this. It goes into crop censored mode. This is a crop censored lens. Therefore, allowing me to get really, really close up. This is the shot that I use for a lot of my rings. So if I'm shooting a ring at a wedding, this is this little 24mm with the adapter, the Metabones adapter. That allows me to get super close and get these really nice beautiful macro shots. Because it's a crop censored lens, I have to punch in and do crop sensor. So that also allows you to use lenses that are made for crop sensor will actually work on this camera as well by just, again, I have this pre-programmed to C3. So you have those options to go in here and you can sit shooting auto or manual, and then you can turn it on and off depending on if you need it. So I have it off at the moment. So that's what APS-C Super 35 mode does. So we'll hit menu again to go back, and we just finished the first row of 14 of so many more to go. So you have your long exposure NR, your high ISO NR. Again, these will be in, if I had a lens attached, these would show up. Let me see if they'll show up under video mode real quick to turn those on or off. So there we go. Now we're in video mode. So some of this stuff will be grayed out if it's not in the right mode, just to let you know. So long exposure NR, and honestly, I'm going to turn that off. So mainly this helps you with a longer exposure, ISO, and not get as much noise, and it does the work inside the camera. I prefer to do that kind of compensation or that fixing in post. So I leave this off, and honestly, high ISO, this does pretty much the same thing where it's trying to do work inside the camera for you. I'm going to go on and turn that off. That should have been off anyways. But good thing that it wasn't, so I could show that to you. I like to do all that stuff in post, fix it myself, so I don't really ever have these two options turned on, just to let you know. Now, you can leave them on if you want, because it is, in theory, the camera software is going to try to fix it inside and kind of fix your camera. I don't want the camera to fix anything for me. I want to do everything myself and have full control over the camera. Okay, so your color space. You have two color space, sRGB and Adobe RGB. The best way to describe color space is sRGB, let's say, has a color space of this big. So all the different types of colors that intermix with each other, the whole entire spectrum is probably this big. With Adobe RGB, your color space now becomes larger. You can get more colors, more depth into your colors, therefore creating a better quality picture, in my opinion. So I always leave it in Adobe RGB because I get a larger color palette, which I absolutely love. Lens compensation. So what this does is, and we'll go into it, is it actually tries to compensate for certain lenses. So with if I could actually say that right, but chromatic aberration, I cannot pronounce that. Let's try this again. Chromatic aberration. I don't know why I'm struggling to say that, but I am today. So it goes in and it will try to calibrate and fix that in your lens. So you can have it set to auto. I just leave them on auto. Distortion. So if you have a lens that you're afraid of, like I have a 14 millimeter, and it's linear, so it does not allow for really bad barrel distortion. But this would go in and try to fix that barrel distortion if I had really bad barrel distortion in my lens. So actually, I'm going to leave all three of these auto and trust that the camera can help, because there are times that you do need that help, and that's why you just have it set to auto. The camera will go in with the profiles that it has set and try to make sure that you don't have chromatic aberration or distortion or some shading issues. So go on to number 3 of 14. So scene selection, drive mode, single shooting. So what we can do here, again, we'll switch back over to in mode. This should free up some of those. So the scene selection, again, I'm guessing if we go to right here, that will allow that to come on. And now we can actually pick what scene we want, right? So we'll go back up here and go back into in mode. So some of these, you have the option to use it, but depending on which mode you are on your dial for your camera. So we'll go back here, hit menu. So now scene selection is now turned off. Drive mode, continuous shooting. So these are your different drive modes that you have. You can actually go in and hit low, medium, or high if you're doing continuous shooting, which I did a lot during that Tough Mudder. Or you can just do a single shot. You can set self timer. You can also go into here and do different options here for self timer. You have different bracketing options here. So if you need to bracket, you have that option. I just leave it in single mode most of the time, but every once in a while, I need those other modes. You can go in and do bracketing settings. So if we want to set up bracketing for like a high dynamic range photo, which is an HDR photo, we could set all that up. We could set a timer, and then we could set how much of a difference in EV that we want right here. which is fantastic. Again, that's really used a lot for photo modes only and when you're shooting high dynamic range photos, so you get different exposures, and it will bracket those exposures off your base exposure that you decided is like, this is a well-exposed photo here, so now it's gonna base that off of it, and it's gonna over and underexpose that depending on how many times you need it to on each end. And that will actually, then you'll combine those in an editing software and create some really cool, amazing photos. So I do have some videos on the YouTube channel, and I probably need to update them with new processes in doing high dynamic range photos. So you have your MR, again, this, and you have your memory here. So how you have all this set up right here. So you can go in here and register these. So this is the really, really cool thing with memory recall. So actually I probably just screwed that up, and I'm gonna have to go in and fix this now. But this has to do with these right here, 1 and 2. So I can go to 2, and now it's all those settings are gonna be registered. So if I go out to my camera here and I'm set up all my settings, and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna use a lot. I'm gonna use these settings combined right now all the time for a very specific shoot. Let's say I do a very specific type of picture at a wedding, and minus my ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, everything else pretty much stays the same, right? So I can hit menu, have those set up, and I can go into memory here, and I can save those settings into one of these. So if I go to 1 and 2, so let's say I switch over to 1 here, I can pick which one I have saved. So I don't have anything saved to these, right? I have something set to 1. Again, to do that, you have to preset everything you want and then go in here and hit save. So we'll go back here again. So this is the recall, if you're recalling those settings. But if you actually want to save, those settings, once you preset everything, so again, we got the camera, we preset everything that we want to preset because we know we're going to use this in the future, right? We're on dial 1 at the moment. So I preset it. I'm going to go into menu. I'm going to hit the menu button here. I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to go to the 3rd of the red camera. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say I want to save those settings to, let's say, M2. So it's going to register that slot. So now when I go to, we'll go from 1 to 2 here, and then I'm going to go to M2, and now it has those registered settings right there, and I just click that, and now I've got all my stuff preset. Granted, I might have to change my shutter speed or my aperture or my f-stop to get the lighting exactly where I want, but like picture profile, autofocus, manual focus, all those settings that you would use normally, they're all preset. Or if you want to have video settings that you want to have. Again, to do that, you would go into your video. So we'd go here, we'd be like, all right, so I don't want to shoot at 60 frames per second. So I'm going to go to menu, and I'm just going to go to one of my things here because I preset all this, right? And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, and I say I want to actually shoot at 24 frames right here, right? And I want to shoot at 1080, right? So I've set those up. I like it. So now what I'm going to do is go back out, make sure all my settings are where I want. So let's set my ISO to 4000 because let's just to show you how it saves it, right? So now we're going to go back up here, red, 1, 2, 3. Memory, and we're going to put this on M4. So you have 1 and 2, and then you have 4 more settings after that, which is fantastic. So we're going to register that on M4. So now we're going to switch over to 2 or 1, and then we're going to pick, I want my M4 settings. Look at that. So now I have this set up to shoot video at, let me make sure that it went into M4. So, and we go to M4, and now it's got those settings. See where it even has the 24 frames, and it has the ISO, and that's registered. I'm actually gonna have to go back in because I actually just hit the register button on M2, and I'm probably gonna have to reset those to what I originally had them at. But that's how you actually pre-set up profiles. This is so amazing. And you can even scroll down and you have all this information that you can add in and save it. So this is all that information that you can have finely tuned and finely tweaked the way you want to for a very specific thing. Because there are a handful of very specific stuff that we do at weddings that, like, I don't want to go back in and change that. I just want to switch to something that already has everything preset because I know the settings that I need and I can get them. So, and then this is just your memory recall. So you can just jump over and pick those. So moving on, select media. Select media, slot 1 or 2. Always have slot 1 selected because, again, we talked about this. Slot 1 is the faster SD card reader. So we want to use slot 1, then we'll switch to slot 2. So moving on to 4, register custom settings. So you can actually recall custom, and we can go in and we can set up custom settings here and register those. And we can import settings as well, which is fantastic. So again, we can go in and recall custom. So if we just zoom, and we can go in and set up custom settings if we want, and use those. So again, I'm not going to set up any of those custom settings. We don't use that here, but you have that option under Shoot Mode Drive 2. Going on to 5, focus mode. Again, this is grayed out because I don't have a lens attached. So let's just say I want to attach a lens. And we'll hit menu, and we'll go back out to video, and I should be able to. So again, let's make sure that I don't have autofocus turned on. So you got to have autofocus turned on. Now I can go in and pick my different focus modes that I want. So if I had it in camera settings, just regular old M here, and we went over and we went, now we have a lot more options right there. So again, focus mode goes away. So if I go over here to the left and we turn autofocus off, it's grayed back out. So just to let you guys know, that's what focus mode is. You can go in and pick the different modes that you want for focus. Really, continuous autofocus and single shot are the two that you're going to use the most, just to let you know. So we'll go back in here. Next is the priority set in AFS. Balance emphasis. So pretty much how that works is priority set in AFS sets whether to release the shutter even if the subject is not in focus. When focus mode is set to single shot AF, DMF, or automatic AF and the subject is remaining still, you can go into your menu as desired settings. So again, priority set in AF. Then you also have priority set C, and we'll go over what that does. So priority set in AFC, again, autofocus is what AF stands for, whether to release the shutter even if the subject is not in focus when continuous autofocus is active and the subject is in motion. So you can go in and set that. I just have them to balance emphasis, and I find that works the best. Focus area. You have a bunch of focus areas here, and some of these focus areas you can even customize. So if you look for little lines, and this is actually going to be your spot. So you're going to have a little bit of square for these, and you can actually use this over here on the right where my thumb's at to move that square depending on where you want to specifically focus. You have expand flexible spots. These are literally just different focuses. For video, I like to be in zone. I think if you're doing autofocus in video, zone does best. But if I need to be very specific in what I want to focus, I can go center and I can move that center point around, or I can do flex spot, which again, changes the size of focus point. And if I have it in small, that means I'm probably going to do a macro shot and I want it to be very specific on the screen back here, what and where I'm focusing. That's where touchscreen is very helpful, is that I'm able to go in and touch exactly where my focus point is. But again, when shooting video, I am most definitely always in zone minus a few occasions. So just to let you know. Focus settings, so we can go into here and we can set up focus settings. We see how I'm able to move this around here, or I can move it around here. And then I can, again, so those are your focus settings, and you can go in and you can change it. You can see, so if I go into, that's the zone, and you can just go in there and do that. So SWT, VH, AF area, so autofocus point only, autofocus plus AF area. I just have that turned off, but if you wanted autofocus point only, you can use that, or AF point plus AF area. Hey guys, thanks for stopping in and watching whichever part you just finished up. As always, there is a link right over here to the side that you can click. It will pop out, and then you can actually pick which part you want to watch if you haven't finished them all. And there is going to be a link at the end of this video. If you do happen to click on that link, that does give us a little bit of commission so that we can keep making these videos. And as always, guys, I'll catch you next time, and create better. Let's go. You guys about this camera body. If there's other camera bodies you'd like to learn about, or other videos that you'd like to see here at Media Unlocked, Please let us know, because we're here for you and we want to make content that you guys want to watch.